Hello, friends, and welcome to the Lifetime Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, John Zombro, and this is episode number 106. It's a special one for me because it's entitled Training for Hunting. What is making this show special is that I get to talk about physical preparation in the context of backcountry athletics, and that I get to do a bit of storytelling. Perhaps at the first mention of today's title, you may have thought, hunting, training. Is hunting or can it be a sport? Do you or should you have to train for it? Well, I'm a lifetime athlete, but I'm also a lifetime hunter. I've been hunting, hiking, camping, fishing, cooking, and sharing those experiences with people I care about for my entire life. It's my understanding that humans, through most of evolution, have been termed hunter-gatherers. Hunting was the primary means through which we procured the most nourishing, bioavailable food source we could obtain. It is a primal tradition in human culture, and it remains a practice today throughout much of the world. I grew up with a great amount of respect for the animal kingdom and an equal portion of reverence toward the process of being a human beast and hunting for not just the bounty it provided, but the enriching experience and connection to nature it required. I'm happy to live in a world where I can go to the grocery store to acquire meat or to get grass-fed, grass-finished, extremely high-quality beef from my local rancher. But I also deeply appreciate the opportunity to do it all myself. This is the field-to-table journey. It's a part of my life, and it's the focus of this story. As some of you regular listeners will know, I'm an advocate for the chest freezer. Procuring and securing meat in volume is the most economical way to ensure quality nutrition, and you can get an Energy Star freezer on Craigslist or at your local home store for a very reasonable price. I like to spend time in the fall and winter filling my freezer with a mix of wild and domestic meat. You might recall my mentioning that my quest for an elk was unsuccessful last fall during the autumn hunting season, which is the first time that's happened in several decades. I was out with my bow and later with a rifle, and I just couldn't get it done. The circumstances were never quite right. I saw some elk, I got close to a few, but none made it to the freezer. I had resolved that this might be a goose egg year regarding the tally. But I also held out hope that the late season, what here in Montana is called the shoulder season, could provide one last opportunity for me to fill that freezer. That shoulder season is unique because it requires that all the hunting take place on private land, and seeking permission and gaining access is necessary. We've been having a fairly mild, at least by Montana standards, winter, and most of the elk had not migrated onto the ranch lands, which is their traditional winter range. They were staying up in the mountains where south-facing hillsides provided ample graze, and they just didn't need to come down. All that stated, I knew of a ranch which bordered the national forest in some fairly steep mountainous country, and where the foothills were on private property, and where my scouting had revealed some elk were living. This property just happened to be owned by a friend of a friend, and with just a little communication, I was able to be granted permission to hunt. And it's important to forge relationships in all of life and to reciprocate. So I'll be gladly repaying this kindness in another form in the near future. My plan came together fairly quickly. I would head out in the pre-dawn hours, hike the approximate 3 miles up and across the property, and hope to intercept the elk in one of the steep canyons which funneled through the mountain's edge. I began my hike on an access road, an old logging cut, and made my way uphill. I had my usual pack outfitted with all the gear necessary to go into the field. This included the necessary hunting gear, such as rifle, ammunition, optics, knives, sharpener, saw, game bags, rope, and license. Also, there was a fire starting setup, a first aid kit, a headlamp and spare batteries, extra clothing, food, and water. Even though this was a front country outing, it's important to be prepared. I'd be several miles from my truck, parked on a gravel road in rugged terrain, and in winter conditions. Only a fool would endeavor to go less equipped. This is the first point in which I can talk briefly about training for hunting. While I try to maintain general all-around fitness throughout the year, and I specifically train for track and field in the spring and summer, hunting is my biggest sport, and I use training methods that include lifting, hiking, and carrying all year round to make being out on those adventures more enjoyable than they are exhausting. So I'm walking uphill at a steady rate with a 30-pound load in 6-inch deep snow, and my heart rate is fairly low. I'm not gassed out and soaked in sweat. I'm just motoring up in the dark. Since I'm walking on a road in snow with a sliver of moon in the sky, I don't need a light, and I just enjoy the surroundings. I'm not taking for granted the ability to do this, and I wanted to mention that right off the bat. As it begins to get light, I reach the elevation I was shooting for, and I begin to traverse the side hills of the canyon country. As I got into some prime habitat, there were lots of old elk tracks everywhere. This was a good sign. The animals had been living here as I predicted, based on my knowledge of the area, the weather patterns, and biology. Soon I found the tracks of a number of elk, which had moved down the mountainside in the night to reach prime feeding grounds. It was unlikely that they would use the same route to return to the bedding grounds higher on the mountain, and with an unfavorable wind and steep conditions, I elected to continue traversing the country and rely on glassing with my binoculars to hopefully spot my quarry. Fast forwarding, I covered perhaps another mile, moving slowly through the now knee-deep snow, and I located some elk. I selected the one that I wanted for the freezer, assessed the range, and made the dispatch efficiently. Here's where the conditioning thing comes in again. The expired elk came to rest in a steep ravine, actually an avalanche chute. And while the snow conditions did not really pose an avalanche risk, simply getting to the animal involved some fairly challenging down climbing, at least given the slippery conditions. I made it safely to the harvest site, and first I gave thanks to the elk for the gift of its spirit and my good fortune. Then I also recognized my gratitude for being able to get there easily. Okay, well, now things get more interesting. The hillside was so steep that the first thing I had to do after I punched my tag and laid out all my processing gear was to tie off the elk with a rope so that it didn't slide further down the mountainside. Then I began to skin, field dress, and quarter the carcass, needing to occasionally wrestle the beast into better positions and to use a variety of kneeling, squatting, stooping, and reaching techniques. Given the situation, this took me several hours. I wasn't in a hurry anyway. I was steeping myself in the moment, and also, you never, ever get in a hurry with a knife in your hand. Stupid things can happen quickly. Once I had everything secured, I was glad that my back and my hamstrings had allowed me to perform all the necessary tasks, and my conditioning had really paid off in this respect. Next up, I surveyed the scene. And I needed to rely on my training at this point at its greatest level. Counting my gear, I had 5 loads of 50 to 60 pounds each that eventually had to get into my truck. This included the bagged bone-in quarters and a bag of prime cuts, trim, and organs, which went into my expandable backpack. I thought about bushwhacking downhill to the truck, but it was rough terrain and would only cut about a half mile off my total journey. The mileage and total vertical of such a series of laps seemed to be a bit daunting, and I quickly ruled out that mega workout. I was only about 150 yards downhill from the road cut that I had walked in on, and if I could get the meat to that road, I could walk back in my tracks on a much easier, albeit slightly further, course. As a reminder to myself and everyone, always take a trail or a road when possible when navigating the backcountry. The energy savings are exponential compared to off-trail hiking in rough terrain. So here's how my plan came together. I would have to kick steps into the snowy hillside and hump the loads up to the road using a safe route. Then once there, I'd cache the quarters in a snowbank and cover with logs to deter coyotes. Although there are no absolute guarantees in the behaviors of wildlife, there was not much of a bear concern in this area, and certainly not at this time of year, being midwinter due to hibernation. But this is southwest Montana, so I accepted that there were no guarantees with this plan. I'd secure the meat in the afternoon, then walk out heavy, and come back first thing in the morning with snowshoes, poles, and a sled. One more thing about the cache. The temperatures were not overly frigid, so burying the meat deep in the snow and covering it actually prevented it from freezing due to the insulating igloo-like effect. Making those 5 trips with literally dead weight against gravity took an extreme effort. Just walking around in the gym doing carries on the shoulders or strongman style type of training would be easy with those weights, but climbing up an icy hill in awkward positions was tough. I'm not going to lie. If I was looking for a workout, I got it. Again, being able to do this and not get injured or shattered was essential in the experience for me. Back to conditioning. I made it to the truck feeling decent, but glad to get that pack off. Tired but not sore. I went home that evening, did a few stretches, and had a large recovery meal. And I awoke the next morning pretty much ready to hit it hard again. The ability to come back quickly from high output can't be overestimated, and it's one of the great values of regular training. Day 2 was honestly relatively easy. I snowshoed up the mountain on the logging road, dragging a sled behind me. It was much easier walking on top of the snow than post-holing through, and the poles helped. Once at the cache, I found the meat undisturbed and in excellent condition. I loaded the sled and lashed the load down tight. My route out had about a mile of mostly flat, with a small uphill thrown in just to keep me honest, and then 2 miles of easy downhill. It took very little time and effort to tow that meat barge back to the truck, and then load everything and head home for 2 days of meat cutting and wrapping, and freezer filling. I'm super thankful to have that meat in the freezer, as this is one of the cornerstones of my personal nutrition program and one of my secrets to health and peak performance. Once again, returning to this conditioning thing. This story was not meant to be a cocky tale by a tough guy filled with macho talk. I'm an average human at best. At a shade under 6 feet and about 170 pounds, I'm a lanky dude who'll be 56 this year. The point, or at least my point, is that doing vigorous things like solo elk hunting in wild country is something I want to be able to keep doing for many more years. That I can do this at all is a testament to conditioning more than any innate ability I may have. And any chance I have of keeping this tradition going and enjoying it demands that I maintain high levels of conditioning. Now we're at the point in the show where I want to share some valuable information about training for hunting. Being a backcountry athlete and my specific hunting conditioning program, Fit for the Field. This is a training program that I developed specifically for the mountain athlete. It's based on my experience as a board-certified specialist in orthopedic physical therapy and as a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I analyzed the specific movement requirements and necessary fitness capacities for people who are serious about their time in the outdoors. Fit for the Field is a 12-week program which uses a proprietary workout system along with a progressive hiking schedule. It gets you ready for adventure and helps your body to have that all-day durability, which is so essential for any recreational pursuit, but especially for serious hunters. The ability to own the shape, position, and motion of your body in all the creative ways which are required in the field, and for which it's genetically programmed, are honed by Fit for the Field. You might say, oh, I just walk for upland birds and I don't need this kind of a workout. Well, my response would be that this program would make it a hell of a lot easier for you to walk as much as you want and not be destroyed by it. Or maybe you're a waterfowler. Setting up and taking down large decoy spreads will be simple when you're fit for the field. And there are folks who will say, oh, I only hunt from a tree stand and I don't need to be in shape. Unfortunately, the statistics don't support that statement. Every year, many hunters fall from tree stands or have heart attacks or back strains trying to drag a deer out of the woods. Hunting is a sport. You should train for it. You owe it to yourself, your family, and the animals you pursue. Respect the ancient traditions. You can get fit for the field and be ready for your next adventure. See what's over the next hill and stay in the game, not on the sidelines, by simply grabbing your copy of this Lifetime Athlete ebook program today. It's available exclusively at thelifetimeathlete.com. Just hit the shop item on the menu, select programs, and download your copy today. Fit for the Field works great at any time of the year for any human beast who wants to be more capable and functional in the outdoors. And if you're in the Bozeman, Montana, Gallatin Valley area this summer, I'll be offering Fit for the Field as part of the Training Tribe Summer Outdoor Fitness Class program. More information will be out soon regarding registration and other details. So that's a wrap on today's show, folks. Thanks as always for being a part of our Lifetime Athlete Kick-Ass community. Please consider rating, reviewing, and sharing this show. And there are some great topics and guests queued up for the next few episodes, so please stay tuned. And don't forget about the Hard to Kill workshop on February 29th, where the masterclass in kicking ass helps you toward your best year ever in 2020. More details on that are available at thelifetimeathlete.com/hardtokill. Until next time, this is Coach JZ signing off from the Lifetime Athlete, where you can achieve peak performance at any age.